Father, they let our toes touch grass. And we did not burst into flame. Hast thou lied to us?
Hey, hi folks. Welcome to live stream at the Upper Room. I'm Ron Strand, and what you just saw is our guest for tonight, Robert G. Lee. We're going to be bringing him in a minute. Very funny guy. But if you're viewing tonight for the first time, welcome. And we would like to let you know a little bit about what the Upper Room is and what we're doing. The Upper Room is an event-driven ministry in Orange County, South Orange County, California. And we do an event once a month. We have musical guests. We have comedians. And it's a great time for something outside the walls of the church. We do it all on a donation basis. And if you'd like to know a little bit more about what we're doing at the Upper Room, go to theupperroompresents.com. That's theupperroompresents.com. And you'll see what's going on. Right now, unfortunately, nothing's going on because of the COVID virus, and we're not able to meet. And so we'll keep you posted. We're hoping to, I think probably it's looking like fall before we can start meeting again. But we're trying to work on a few things, and if it works out, we might be able to do something, maybe outdoors, but nothing's promised yet. So check us out at theupperroompresents.com. And we're just excited about doing what we're doing now, and we're able to connect with you. If you'd like to get on our email list, email us at info@theupperroompresents.com, and we will put you on our email list, and you'll get updates as to when we're going to be having some our upcoming shows. And take a look at who we've had in the past there. It's a great venue, a great time. It's a very intimate venue, no more than 300 people. And it's just a wonderful time. So, hey, start typing questions now for our guest tonight. And because we're going to get to questions a little bit later. And let us know where you are tonight, where you're viewing from tonight. Because we get people all over the world sometimes, and it's really good to know who's out there and who's watching. Like us on Facebook. Would you do that? Would you like us on Facebook? And would you subscribe to our YouTube channel? Both the Facebook page and the YouTube channel are the Upper Room Presents. You could find them there. And on the YouTube channel, you'll be able to find past shows. And this show will be aired tomorrow on YouTube. So you could tell your friends who may not be on Facebook that they could watch this tomorrow. So that would be a wonderful thing. If you have a prayer request, we have a special email for that. Would be prayer@theupperroompresents. We would love to pray for you. So, hey, we are going to get right into our guest. He's appeared, I think, he's probably going to correct me, but I think it's at least 7 or 8 times in the last 10 years at the Upper Room. Seems like almost every year. He's just a great guy to hang out with. He's a very funny man. And he is our special guest tonight. Would you welcome comedian Robert G. Lee? Where is he?
Hello, how are you? I'm going to talk to you like my mother talks on my Zoom calls. This is all I ever see on my mother's face. Like, hello, Bobby, how are you?
You see the blue hair when she's doing that?
I won't do that. No, it drives me crazy. Every time I try and talk to her, she's always somewhere in the frame.
Is that it? Does she know how to do Zoom? Your mother?
No, my brother's there with her, but still, she's always in this bottom corner. She's also shrunk. She's the size of a hobbit now, so that's another reason for it. But no, we never see her.
Funny. So, Robert, I was thinking tonight as I was getting ready for this, and particularly in the light of the crazy, crazy time we're in right now, with all these statues coming down and all these Confederate things that are being, demolished. Your name is very similar to a Confederate general.
Yes, my name is. I'm going to change it to something much less inflammatory. I'm now known as Malcolm X Lee, and I think that's much better.
Malcolm X Lee.
Because Robert G. Lee is not a good name to have right now. Yeah, it's people are going crazy, and And I am related to him. You can tell if you look at the nose.
Is that
you
it?
can tell we have the Lee nose. It's the exact same thing. So I'm distantly related to Robert E. Lee. I'm directly related to the people who signed the Declaration of Independence, like Light Horse Henry Lee.
Really?
And he's their nephew. So there's a line there somewhere. But
Is that right?
Lee nose is definitely there. Yeah.
Wow. Well, the Dixie Chicks changed their name to just the Chicks.
Which is also inflammatory. So,
That's like jumping from the frying pan into the fire.
Yeah. So
We're just the Chicks now. That's not demeaning.
No, not at all. So again, from this point on, Malcolm X Lee. Thank you very much.
Malcolm X Lee. So is that how I should introduce you next time?
Please don't, because I'll get fired.
You can't do anything today. It's just you can't do anything. And you got to laugh about it, because if you don't, you just get depressed. So, hey, how have you been through this time?
Well, that's a loaded question.
It is.
I would say good, but it's still very, very odd. Who would have known that this was going to last 3 months and will probably go longer? The good news is, and I mean, I know you have a faith base. Well, that's what this is. That's what you are. That's what I am. We have seen manna from heaven literally drop down. It's like, where'd that come from? I have no idea. I've gotten residuals I wasn't expecting. We got a little bit here, a little bit there. The show I was working on, Sony paid their crew for 3 extra shows we didn't even work. Now, granted, They probably got a government subsidy, but it sure helped us. So we've had all that. So it's been 3 months and we've lost everything as far as gigs. And we had more planned, but those people are pulling out because they can't have more than 100 people in a room. So those fundraisers are gone. So people are cautious and they're starting to go out, but God is good all the way throughout. So that's just my point of view, and I know yours. But it is amazing how things are coming through for us and other friends. It's like, wow, God knew this before we did. So, and suffering. There's a book by Tim Keller that we're doing in our Bible study about how God works in suffering, and he wrote it when he was going through a cancer scare. And he's in the middle of another one right now, but it's really good. Like, okay, this is, what life is. It's a test to see if you're paying attention. So that's what we're in the middle of.
Yeah, that is so true. Yeah, and Tim Keller's such a great teacher, wonderful man. So let's explore some stuff tonight with you, because one of the things to me that's always interesting to ask a comedian, such as yourself, is what clicked in your heads at some point that said, this is what I want to do for a living. And, at what point did you say, I'm going to jump into this thing with both feet?
And people are interested in that. And it's just how we're made. We're all made differently. I always wonder about that with accountants. Do they wake up one day and go, I want to add, I don't know how
I love numbers
works. I don't know what that works, but there's something about figures that works with them. My brain just always worked differently. And I was talking to Ann about this. Ann's my wife, a little while ago.
A lovely woman, by the way.
And that's why we had to send Ron questions, because he couldn't spend the whole hour going, your wife is great. Your wife is great. But I knew from early on, my brain didn't work the way other people's brains worked. And I loved comedy. I loved watching my dad. My dad was very funny. And so he would work the room. He would always be the guy at the head of the table, making everybody laugh at reunions and that kind of thing. So I admired him. He was my hero. So I had that. And I know Bill Cosby's not popular today, but it is true that I saw him when I was, I think, 5. And I said, that's what I want to do. And then my parents told me I could not be black. So I just went for the comedy thing. And although that's a joke in there, it's really very true. Yeah. And my first stand-up routine that I didn't even know was a stand-up routine, it was in 5th grade. And they showed us a movie. And I was talking to Ann about this recently. And the movie was a hunter goes into the woods and he's got his dog and he's going to shoot a deer. But then the deer has like a doe that comes out next to it. And the hunter has a change of heart and he goes away without killing the deer. And I'm sure it was to have us express feelings of being pacifists and never killing living things. But I turned it into a comedy routine. And there was a cartoon called George of the Jungle. And so I just renamed everything. And I had my teacher crying. She was laughing so hard. And it was that moment when I said, and I realized nobody else in the room was doing this. They were all writing serious stories. And I just said, well, this is funny. I can make this funny. And I did. And so that's when I realized, okay, I don't I don't look at life the way that everybody else in this room looks at life. And from that point on, I've always done that and realized it's not a mystery to me anymore. I see the funny angle that not everybody else sees, and the comedian presents it, and everybody else goes, "Oh yeah, I didn't even see that." And that's the fun. We all experience the same thing, but it takes the comedian to point out how ridiculous it is. So that's kind of
well, and it's got to be something as a kid to make a teacher laugh, to make an adult laugh. You know, you can make other kids laugh, but to make an adult laugh, it's a big deal, isn't it?
Yes, although my next teacher in 6th grade was a Nazi, so I couldn't make her laugh at all. She would take I would do creative cartoons, and she would rip it off my notebook and throw it away. And so you learn that not every audience is a good audience.
Yeah, and some people just don't have a sense of humor. Isn't that true?
She did not. No. So, but going in, when did I know that I knew I wanted to do it early on.
Yeah.
In college, and you can almost look at who I liked and as far as comedians, and you can traverse the whole career. Goes from Bill Cosby to George Carlin, and then in college it was Monty Python and Woody Allen, and then in high school, right around that time when I was too shy to ask anybody out, I found all these silent movie stars and the Marx Brothers, because I would go to movies by myself because I was too shy to ask anybody else out, which is absolutely true. And my dad would say, why don't you just ask somebody? But there was an old theater downtown, and they showed silent movies, and so I fell in love with Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin, and I started studying comedy, saying, oh, that's how they do it. Oh, I get it. And then, of course, Monty Python just blew the lid off what comedy was. And from that point on, it's like, no, I'm going to do this. So I started a comedy show on the radio in college, and I got a partner, and we started doing comedy around campus. And I knew that this is where I'm going to go. I knew that beyond a shadow of a doubt. Just didn't know how I was going to get there.
So you had a partner for a while, and you did some routines like Monty Python, and well, there's so many of them. There's a new I don't know if they're new, but I've kind of discovered them recently, and a couple of young men, Peel and is it Key and Peele or Peel and Key?
Yeah, and they've been around for a while, and they've got some great. They're not together anymore.
Oh, they're not.
No, one of the guys, he went on to do Get Out, the horror movie that came out a couple of years ago. But they were hilarious. I mean, there's some sketches of theirs, foul but hilarious. So they were
some of it's foul stuff, and but some the premise of some of it is just just really funny, and so. They were a very good team. They played well off each other, and that is important, obviously, for a good comedy team.
Came because I had a partner because I was afraid to be myself on stage, so we just did characters, and so we would bounce off each other. We wrote sketches together, and I could do characters on the radio, and so we had a radio show, as I said, and we eventually made an album in college of this whole group of us. And Nancy Cartwright, who was on The Simpsons, was with us for a year before she went out to California. It took me a while to get over these, just doing characters and being myself. And that's when he moved to Chicago, so we weren't going to be a team after college, but that's how I started doing that. We were called Mostly Bob and Kevin. That's who we were.
Mostly Bob and Kevin. So have you ever looked back? You said, geez, well, why did I do this? Or have you ever looked back and said, I'm glad I did this? Or has it just never been an issue?
Well, my life is filled with nothing but regret. So I do have a lot of, oh, why did I do that? I could have gone that way. But it's always been revolved around comedy. I don't regret. Well, I'll put it this way. We had a high school reunion, and my friends from elementary school, all the way through high school, we got together for a brunch over at my mom's house. And one of the young girls, who's a woman now, said, did you ever imagine it would be like this when you were in high school? And she's got 2 boys, and they're in sports, and she never did sports. So we were going on the table saying, what's different? I said, I didn't know it was going to be this hard. It was in the middle of a downtime, and I had to reinvent myself. And my friend, who's now a federal judge in Chicago, he's been my friend since kindergarten. When I see him, I have to say, "Your Honorable Booger Breath." That's how we phrase it. He said, "Bob, you get to do what you've always wanted to do." and many people don't. And so you're really living the dream that you always had, and that put everything in perspective. It's like, here's a federal judge telling me, just a guy who knocks around making jokes for a living. I write jokes for vegetables on VeggieTales sometimes. It's like, yeah, I'm very fortunate. So no, I don't regret what I've done. I regret some choices, like, oh, I should have gone to that writer's room, or I should have written that script, or maybe I should have tried harder here. But you don't know who's going to make it and who's not going to make it. But I have been able to make a living being creative and sitting up and making up stuff, both in my room and off the seat of my pants, for over 30 years. So how do you
beat that?
So I'm very fortunate in that regard. No, I didn't have to dig ditches. I've had a blessed life. It's been great.
What do you think you would have been had you not been a comedian?
I know there was a group of people who tried to do comedy back in Indianapolis, and then they went into advertising. My uncle was in advertising. It would be something creative.
Something creative, writing different things that are,
exactly.
Because that's the way your mind works. And, I'm a frustrated comedian. I think you know that. I mean, I'm always thinking of funny stuff.
You're just frustrated is what you're
I'm just a frustrated old guy. But, it's putting it together, and it's timing, and it's the comfort level on stage and how you present. There's a whole, it's a whole thing. But I'm kind of like you, though. I'm always thinking of things that are funny in situations. But and so that's how it works, right?
Well, yes. You learn. You have to be the Ron Strand who thinks of funny things and then know the craft of how to put it up on stage. And that's the only missing ingredient. And I don't say anybody can do it, but some people just have it and they just know how to do it. And even Steve Martin, he got his first job. It's almost a famous story of, he worked on the Smothers Brothers, and they hired him because he was a new, fresh comedian, and he was writing jokes. And the head writer came over and pointed to the page and said, "The punchline goes at the end." Okay, that's good. That's good to know. And so,
a little bit of advice there.
Yeah, but it was the craft. He's funny. Learn the craft, and then you can make people laugh. There's fun and profit in stand-up comedy.
Yes. Well, one of the things that you do that I really admire is that you mentor a lot of younger comics or up-and-coming comics, and that's really quite a honorable thing to do, because
I'm thinking of starting a master class, and that's not a joke. I'm working out, because I've done it so many times and talked to different groups that it's like there's ways to help people without, it's like you're cutting time off their journey is what you're doing. Instead of knocking around the School of Hard Knocks for 10 years, you can cut it down to 2 or 3 if you work hard and learn the rules. So it's been good. It's also come around and bit me in the fanny a couple times. Like, I've helped people get into warm up, and I early on, and those people took my jobs. So it's like, maybe this isn't the smartest thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, because it is a very competitive gig. But I think something like that, where you would do workshops, or something like the Groundlings, or something like Second City, where they do train comics and all these different elements of comedy and improv and the whole thing. It would be a wonderful thing to do.
If you find the right person and they do the work, it's great, because you get to watch them blossom, and it really is fun to see lights go on and go, oh, that's how you do it. Okay. Yeah. So I like the reason I like it so much is because I like the writing side. I like the creative side. People just think, well, I'm going to be a comedian. It's like, no. You got a lot of work to do to get ready to make it look like it's effortless. And I very much do the work. You got to get down there and figure out how use these tools. Here's a tool belt for you. Take something from this, one from column A, one from column B, see what works for you. And that's where I get excited. But not everybody likes the craft as much. There's a few comedians that like the craft as much as me, but not everybody. Some people just go, nah, I'm just going to go up and wing it.
Well, you're such a natural at it, so. But you mentioned a little bit earlier, and I want to go there, because one of the things that you've been doing for over 30 years is working as a warm-up comic in sitcoms in Hollywood. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's a great gig. One that I kind of got trapped in the golden handcuffs, where it's like, well, you do that so well, we don't want you over here. So, I couldn't really move.
So excuse me for cutting you off, but let's explain to the folks that maybe have never been to a live recording of a sitcom. What is a warm-up comedian? What do you do?
Right. I think a lot of people are confused. They think, you come out for 5 minutes before the show, you tell some jokes, you'll walk away. No, that's what happens on a talk show. When you're a TV warm-up comic for a sitcom, it's a 4 to 5 hour job. And so you go out, you get the audience going, and after a while you have this ear for what the producers want. So whenever the cast goes away for a costume change because it's the next day on the sitcom, or the writers have to rewrite something because it's not funny, it's my job to keep the audience entertained. So over such a long period of time, you learn, you don't do prepared material. You have to ingratiate yourself and integrate in the audience and see what they want to do. So it's playing games, having fun. I bring something different out of the bag, tricks between every scene because you can't bore the audience. And there's just this rhythm to it that, okay, it's like if they're really laughing hard, you don't have to do much. Just, a couple questions, just keep them going. But if they're dying, okay, it's time for a dance contest. Okay, I got to bring these people up. I got to do something big to get the energy back up for the next scene because the producers are relying on you to keep them at a certain level so that the laughs are the same at the end of the night as they are at the beginning of the night. Now, the good thing about that is it trains me how to ad lib. I've been to the upper room many, many times, and I love it, and it's fun because the audiences are great. But one of my favorite things to do is I'm not going to do any material right now. Let's just take a couple minutes and let's just ad lib. And you dive in the audience and see what they come up with. And that's when it's really fun, when something spontaneous happens. And the audience always loves that more anyway because they go, oh, you just made that up. It's like, yeah, sometimes the audience doesn't give it to you, but sometimes they do. And you can go down and find this vein of gold. But TV Warm-Up has been wonderful. I didn't have to go on the road. I got to support my family. Now the shows are starting to give me insurance, which is great, and it's like now I need the job, as I say, golden handcuffs. And now I'm at the age where for years I didn't get a pension, but now with the shows coming out, I get a little bit of pension. So it's like, okay, if I retire in 5 years, I'll have health covered until then, and I'll have a pension. So these are the things that old comics think about. So.
Sure. Sure, those are great things. But so tell us some of the sitcoms that you've worked with and some of the shows that you've done.
All right. Well, started off on Golden Girls. I helped the guy get into Golden Girls, and we wrote his act, and he left to do another show, so I started there. When I was on Golden Girls, I called up Designing Women and said, hey, I'm doing it. Because Warm-Up's one of those things where you can't do it till you've done it. So I got Designing Women. And that was great. So, and that was just starting. That I did Married with Children. I did Wings. I did Perfect Strangers, Step by Step, The New Adventures of Old Christine, The Drew Carey Show, Becker, Last Man Standing. And now I'm working on One Day at a Time. Norman Lear rebooted that for what's Netflix. Now it's Pop TV. So, Rules of Engagement. I could go on. I did the pilot of Frasier. I did the pilot of Everybody Loves Raymond. So I have seen the best of the best. And it's been a fascinating journey because you get to watch great directors, great actors, great writers, and you learn a lot just from osmosis, but you see the rhythm of what they're doing and how they're doing it. So it has been a wonderful career just being the guy. I'm on the, I'm the water boy for the team. I'm not the head writer, but it's, I'm on the team, dadgummit.
Well, yeah, and that training, because, one of the things that we've had you do is you've emceed for a lot of our New Year's Eve shows at the Upper Room, and you come in between the acts and keep the audience going for a few minutes, and it's just always such a natural thing that you do. It's like, and so I'm sure that training has really prepared you for the Upper Room.
That was the whole point.
That was the whole point right there.
Just to get ready for you, yes.
So what are some of the memories that you might have at some of the, obviously you've met a lot of these actors and actresses. I mean, some of them come to mind that were some of my favorites in terms of Kelsey Grammer and Everybody Loves Raymond. Some of those actors are just some of my favorites. Did you ever get much chance to interact with the actors?
Yes, if you're on a show for the duration, for a long time, let's say like a show on Wings. Yeah, then people just they befriend you. You become, people always say,
you're part of the cast.
I'm sorry?
You're part of the cast almost.
But yes, exactly. So they'll come over, and I give the example of, here's my Hollywood lesson. My lesson is you become what you always were. I might have told you that. But if you were a jerk and you were hiding it, and then you got a little success, I have stories that I won't give names of certain stars that just thought they were bigger than they really were. Yeah. But then there are those people who were great people, and then they got successful, they became successful, and they just stayed great people. My two favorite examples are Ted Danson from Cheers. I worked with him on Becker for years, and Julie Louis-Dreyfus, who was married, and her dad's a billionaire, so she's got oodles of money, but they're just great people and they appreciate their job. They love what they're doing. And every year that Julie would come in and give me a hug and everybody a hug. And it's like, she was just so friendly and fun. And Ted would play with me on stage. We had a little thing worked out where I'd do a bit, then he'd do a bit, then he'd get mad, he'd throw me off stage. And, we just had fun. So, and there are those that were kind and nice. One famous story is that Patrick Duffy loved me. His family loved me. And his son grew older and older as the show went on. And his son finally said, "You know what, Dad? I can do what he's doing. I've watched him enough times. I could do what Bob's doing." And so they fired me and hired Patrick Duffy's son. So
Seriously?
Oh, I'm quite serious. So I was like, well, I guess I had a good run on that show, and it was time for that to go. But those kind of things, they did happen over time. And there were things like, I would be mischievous and I would send people down on the stage. That was so much fun. I remember once on Designing Women, I told this kid, "Oh yeah, this is great. Everybody who's a guest star, they always start off by I just send them down on the stage." So this 12-year-old kid, I said, "Just go down, and knock on the door, and then Dixie Carter will come over, and then just say, 'Hi, I'm your new neighbor. Let's just see if you can get a spin-off.'" And so this kid did it, and he went down, and from that point on, they had guards on the stage, all because of me, because it's like, you
Really?
can't put people down on the stage anymore. So
You can't do that.
no. So I had some great things. I had some stars that were really paranoid. I had producers that were nuts. I had producers that are the most wonderful people in the world. During the writer's strike and during this last strike, producers sent the whole crew money. So there's a lot of generosity. You hear bad stories about Hollywood. I don't have that many. I have a lot of really good stories of wonderful people that it's like, hey, we're all in this to make a living for our families, and we do what we love. So
Yeah.
It's been a good run.
Yeah. So some of those people are how do I say it? They're well, I think you did say it earlier that they are who they are, and they become successful and they stay that way. And then there's those that their star rises, and so does their ego. And I guess there's always that you deal with as well.
Well, there's an arc. You start here and you go up, and then you go back down. And it's year 1, you're grateful for the show. Year 2, you start to believe the press. And year 3, you're insufferable. And if you have that personality, the longer the show goes, the worse it gets. And everybody just knows, come in and buckle in, because we have to work with star X. And
Right.
It's going to be a problem. And that happened on a couple shows. But for the most part, people are great.
Yeah. So you're also responsible for keeping that audience pumped up, though. I mean, I know one of the things every time I've gone to any kind of live taping is that warm-up guy is just pumping that audience to keep their energy level. And let me see, I'm trying to click out of something here. Anyway, there we go. Then that's got to take a lot of energy, because you've got to not only keep them alert and attentive, but also ready to laugh and applaud. And you kind of got to get the applause going in the whole thing, right?
Yes. But fortunately, I work on shows where it's not lion taming. I mean, it can turn into that if you have a bad show where it's like the laughs aren't there, so they blame the warm up because the audience isn't laughing. I'm on intelligent shows, fun shows, good shows where you can hear if they need to be goosed or not. But it does take a lot of energy. There's no doubt about it. A 4-hour run is a marathon, and it's not just 5 minutes and walk off. It's a long haul. So you're sitting there while the show's going on. You're thinking, okay, who have I used in the audience? What can I do? How can I pump them up? I've done that too many times. I've got to go over there. I haven't talked to that side of the audience. Okay, I'll go over there. Maybe we can sing a song now. So my mind's going to what the next thing is, so that I can get up and act like it's an ad lib. But no, there's no doubt. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of thought, and it's exhausting. But again, once you're a marathon runner, you go, 26 miles. Okay, I can do it.
Yeah. It just becomes second nature. I always remember years ago, Kathy and I went to a taping of The Price is Right. And I can't remember. I think his name was Johnny Olson. Was it Johnny Olson?
He was the announcer for it, yeah.
Announcer. But and I think it was him. But he really got that audience pumped. And, that particular show, they really got to get that audience pumped because they're part of the show.
You're gonna cut to the, you can have that one person looking off to the side. Mine you just hear, but the audience that's all like that, they
right. Yeah, I remember him running around and almost kind of doing a fake striptease and very physical comedy, but he really got that audience up, and then he'd say, okay, let's clap and let's clap louder now, and just
Yeah.
getting them really to respond. So I just thought, wow, that's really quite a job to get those people amped up. And
I'm not that good. I don't do that.
You don't do the striptease, Bob?
I'm tired of you. I'm exhausted thinking about it.
You might get a little. I was going to say you might get a few more gigs, but then again, you might get kicked out of Hollywood these days.
Well, I'm going to think on that though. Thank you. I'm going to write that down.
Well, hey, I'm good at giving career advice, so So talking about these kind of things, you've obviously seen it all in the 30 plus years that you've been, longer than that, but the audience, what kind of funny stories do you have with audience responses and stories like that?
It has changed a lot over the last couple of years, and that I work clean, I am clean, but I've offended more people in the last year than I have in my entire career. Because, and this is a producer phrase that's not me, they said, Bob, you have to realize that people are coming in looking to be offended. It's like, yep, that's the difference in our society. Used to be, hey, I'm on a TV show, this is great. Now it's, you don't agree with my political views? I don't. You're a white man and you're talking about this? No, you can't say that. So I get a lot of, and so it's like, I'm just backing off. I have ad libs in my head. It's like, not going to say it because I'm going to keep this so Disney-fied, PG-13. Other comics have gotten in trouble for, inappropriate touching and things like that. I said, oh, that's not me. I'll never get in trouble. No, I got in trouble this last couple of years. It started off, they were just, for audiences were great. Now, here's the difference when you talk about crowds is how I've seen it all. I don't know if you remember a show called Family Matters. Well, There was a character named Steve Urkel, and he was that, did I do that? Yeah. I was there the day that Steve Urkel showed up. And by the end of the show, this was just a kid who was given, he was just a guest star for one show. And the audience was chanting his name by the end of the show.
Really?
By the time he walked off stage, they had signed that kid to a 13-week deal because they knew, they looked at the audience, they looked at him and said, we got something. That was interesting. The pilot of Frasier and Everybody Loves Raymond, I mentioned them because they were just off the charts, fantastic. So the pilots were perfect. I mean, hilarious and perfect, especially Frasier, just to see how they worked everything. These are guys I worked with on Wings, and so I knew the producers, they knew me, and it was just a love fest. But man, when Frasier hit, it was perfection. Everything about it was great. And of course, that show went on to many, many awards, and it was great. But so you see these shows that are fantastic, and you see the shows that, ooh, you don't quite have it. There's so many comics that have tried to get careers and have done pilots, and nope. Ray Romano, he's got it. You, not so much. And it's like for audience love somebody when they just won't. And so there are formulas and things that can happen. But I've been on a lot of shows that didn't make it past the pilot stage, and shows that it was like pulling teeth to get any laugh out. And it could be the writing, it could be the actor, it could be the situation. Some things click, some things don't. It's like trying to catch lightning in a bottle. But when it works, it's so much fun. And Norman Lear talks about this. He says, when he looks up at an audience and he sees them lean in, he knows he has a hit show. And that's what happened on All in the Family and shows like that, because they're waiting for the next line. But if the audience is leaning back and looking away, just give up. Nothing you can do. They're not interested. So it's been very interesting watching the best of the best. I got to watch Jimmy Burrows, who was the director of Cheers and then went on to Will and Grace. I mean, he's the top director, and just watch him work with the actors and what his rhythm is and the things he put in to make things funnier. That was always interesting. And seeing a great producer who understands, this is a better line. Here's a better line. This is funnier. This, you know what? We got to cut this. This isn't working. Let's get out of here. So it's been very fun to be that fly on the wall. I've been able to be in a couple writers' rooms and see how things work. Again, I never
give any input in their scripts. Have you ever been able to do that?
Yes, I was able to on Step by Step and Family Matters and Wings. I was hired to be a punch-up writer on those shows, and that was great fun. But the kind of show that I really work well on, and that's Perfect Strangers and Family Matters, the family comedy, they went away. And so I worked on Wings for a long time and loved it. But, that room, it's as a comedian, I know how to work a room, and I know how to get people to laugh. It's hard to make a bunch of very serious writer types laugh. It's like,
Yeah.
this is a different room. So yeah, every room has a different personality from the top down, and you have to learn what that is and adjust to it. So yeah, that was a big disappointment in the mid 90s when I realized this is not where I'm going to be going. I don't think I'll be the writer on these shows. Now on Step by Step, Just Shoot Me. It was Just Shoot Me. There was a great producer there, and he's since passed on, which is too bad, very sad. But I would call him over and pitch jokes. Do you ever think about this? And a couple of my jokes made it in, so he was very kind. And he goes, well, we can't do the exact joke. I have to change it or else I have to hire you as a writer. So that's fine. You do whatever you want, but go after this neighborhood. So, but it was fun it's fun to pitch to people when a joke is, it's just sitting there. It's like, you missed this one, go for it. So
Yeah.
a little input, not much.
So you said a little bit earlier, though, that you've gotten more feedback or negative feedback, I guess. So what kind of things would those be that got you in trouble?
Well, people,
Because your comedy is not dirty. It's clean comedy.
right? But let's say I'm interviewing somebody and I make a joke about immigration. Well, they can make a joke about immigration because they happen to be Hispanic.
Right.
I can't make a joke about immigration because I'm a white cisgendered male. So there are rules. When I started off in the church, I learned very early on what the rules are on how to work in a church. And my wife's a therapist. She can get in a church and talk about sex all you want because it's positive and God made it and people appreciate it. As if a comedian talks about sex, you can feel everybody just popping up and like, oh, we don't laugh. And C.S. Lewis talked about this in the Screw Tape Letters and Mere Christianity. And so it's nothing new.
Yeah.
You learn, and comedians come up and say, I can work clean. I can work in a church. No. You don't understand what the church sensibility is. It took a long time to find out where that line is and how you can walk up to it and then you got to back off. Being mean to your wife, that doesn't fly. Talking about sex, that doesn't fly. Anything. I mean, comedians. I would see comedians get up in front of church and say, "Hey, you remember, when you wake up the next morning at your girlfriend's house and you have to get your toothbrush and the joke doesn't work and they go, did I say it wrong? Yeah, you said you slept over at your girlfriend's house. The church doesn't like that. It's like, well, I wasn't graphic. You don't understand the church. So those lessons are the lessons I'm learning today. I like to come at things with, what are the two commands? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. Love your neighbor as yourself. It's my job to be a good ambassador for the church. It's my job to love everybody. So I don't care if I agree with you or not. My job is to have fun with, never make fun of. And these are rules I've gone by my whole life, but I've had to resurrect them. So even in an ad lib, it's like, will that offend this person or someone in the audience who thinks I might be going over the line as a white cisgendered male? I bet it's safer not to say it. I will just stay genteel and friendly and thank people and move on. But cutting edge comedy only works with an audience that you love and that they love you and they know and they give you a little bit of forgiveness, like at the Upper Room. But in a sitcom crowd, no, I'm very careful now, very, very careful because I kind of like to eat and I want to keep my job.
Right. Well, you have a great, great bit about what is it called? Gosh, my mind just went blank. It's a procedure. It's a medical procedure that you have.
The colonoscopy?
Colonoscopy. It is a great bit. Do you ever get kind of stuffy Christians that say, well, that's a little bit edgy in that kind of stuff?
First off, I never do it in a sanctuary. Even though God created everything and God is very earthy and God has a sense of humor, I will go to my grave defending that. There are certain things you should say in a sanctuary and certain things that you don't. Then you learn and I never do it at the beginning. I only do it 3/4 of the way through. And if it's,
you feel the crowd out as you're going.
Yeah. And are they an old crowd that they don't, they've been through this and it's like everybody relates to it. But if it's a young married crowd, they don't want to hear that. Or if they just had dessert, they don't want to hear that. So I play it by ear, as it were. But yeah, there's certain routines that I don't have very many of those, but every once in a while it's like, this is just too funny not to say. So I will bring those up. I have those in my repertoire, but I don't do them a lot.
Well, that one and the one about the CPAP, isn't that your bit you do with?
No, that may be somebody else's.
Oh, okay. Maybe it was somebody else's.
But I'll take it.
I'll tell you about it. So, hey, let's take this opportunity. Marisa, do we have let's go to a question and then we'll kind of come back. Do we have a question here tonight? Okay, let's bring that up. Okay, this is from Jason and Jenny Snowbeck. Have you ever been ridiculed for being a Christian in your line of work? And if so, how did you handle it?
And the answer to that is yes. When you work on sitcoms and they know your point of view, it's very well. For example, I did a concert many years ago at my church, and the LA Times came out to review it, and they put up a picture, and it was very nice, but it was me next to the cross, and they pinned it up on the bulletin board of a show I was working on, and I was getting a snack in the next room. And the show wasn't very good, and they knew it wasn't very good. And I heard this because I was in the snack room, and I heard them say, "Hey, we'll just have Bob say, 'Hey, come on, folks, laugh. I'm a Christian.'" And it's like, and they went a little bit further than that. But it was like, oh, that's what they think of me. Not, and then the same writers moved on to another show, and I went up to them after one show and said, "Look, guys, I really appreciate today's show because you debated about God. One character believes in it, the other character doesn't." It says, "I don't care where you fell. I just like the fact that you had an honest discussion, and I thank you for that." So that's the way I approached everything. It's like, I know you're not going to accept me, and you don't think the way I think, but anything, I would emphasize the positive at all times. And for the rest of that show's run, they would come up to me and say, "Hey, Bob, you're going to like this one. It's about God." And they would just kind of laugh and move on. So have I ever lost a show because of it? I don't know. I do know it's held my career back in certain areas because I don't think the way that other people think. I do have a point of view, but I never espouse it from where I am. And as far as being a Christian in the corporate world or in the church world, it's interesting. The most flack I've gotten for being a Christian is from other Christians. It may sound strange, but we tend to have a lot of friendly fire. I was doing a big fundraiser weekend, one of those, $1 million things, and they bring in people for 3 days and they're raising money for a big charity. Well, there was a guy who was given money, and he said, and so after my opening night, they took me aside and said, "You've offended a person in the audience, one of our big fundraiser, one of our big donors, and he says that he doesn't appreciate the Jesus jokes." I go, "What did I say?" He goes, No, it's not any one joke. It's that you had fun with the Bible. He thinks you're making fun of it. But here's the exact quote, and this is one of my favorite quotes of all time. He said, "Show me in the Bible where it says that Jesus laughed." So now that, to me, that gets my hackles up. I go, all right, let me go through the Bible and show you how God has a sense of humor. He has irony. He has hyperbole. He has great exaggeration, which is hyperbole. But he has all pieces of humor. It says that God laughs at us. They said, no. You cannot talk to this person. And so I just had to suck it up and change everything for the rest. Even though it was a Christian event, I could not do anything at all that might imply I was having fun with the Bible, because as far as this guy's concerned, God doesn't laugh. And I've had that before, where I do the Bible on the Huckabee Show in a couple weeks. I think it's going to be, I'm there on July 10th. I'm probably going to be on the 11th or 12th. I'm doing the entire Bible in 6 minutes. Yes. Well, I've done that, and people have taken me outside and ripped me a new one, saying, "Really? Oh yeah, you are mocking God." I go, "I'm not mocking God. I love God. I'm having fun with the characters. He's making fun of people in the Bible, showing our foibles. That's what I'm doing. I'm not mocking God at all. I'm trying to bring his Bible out to a new generation using voices of today." Oh no. And this is one of those favorite times where this guy just berated me literally for a half hour, and how I was a blasphemer. And then I'll give you one more after all this. But my table was surrounded by all these people kind of looking away and like this. And when this guy finally left, everyone came by and said, "Oh, we so agree with you. We're so sorry that he attacked you." I could have had a little help earlier on. But my favorite one was when the COVID hit. I started a show, which we may talk about today, called The Corona Diaries. And it was every single day I put up a new bit, just to deal with the fact that it was all as if people in the future are discovering these tapes to find out how our civilization is wiped out. Okay, well, a Christian who has movies he's made about Jesus and other things said, "I was responsible for the COVID virus. I was a mocker. I was going to burn in hell. He was going to look down from heaven and look at me burning in hell and smile." And I was like, wow. You really are walking a good walk there. So the biggest pushback I've ever gotten for being a Christian and being a comedian comes from Christians, not from people in Hollywood.
Well, it's amazing. What separates us? I'm getting good feedback. Is it coming across okay on online there? From all other of God's creation is irony and humor. You know, I mean, and it's God given, and it's amazing to me that some of these people that think that we shouldn't be funny or that you shouldn't bring any kind of humor into things of the Bible, because some of them are just ripe with it, you know, and particularly your Bible, the Bible in 6 minutes bit. It's a great bit.
Well, I can go on. I mean, Jesus used, it's called Chinese exaggeration to give just a little bit of a Bible thing. The log in your eye, you notice the speck in your brother's eye, but you don't notice the log in your own eye. That's huge exaggeration where he's making a point. And people go, oh, of course, he's making a joke. No one can get a log in their eye. It's easy for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. Well, that's impossible. It's a
hyperbole.
He's making a hyperbolic joke. And people just read these words and go, this is very serious. You go, you're missing God's character entirely if you don't understand what he's doing. So that's my soapbox. I'm sticking to it.
Well, no, and I totally agree with you, because, you know, let's leave that there.
Okay.
So have you ever bombed? Have you ever just gone into a situation and you're going, man, what is it with this audience? I can't get them to laugh. I can't get them to do anything.
Oh, yeah. Oh, every comedian if you ever want to know, just a good comedian story is always, tell me a story about when you bombed. Boom. We have stories out the wazoo. Yeah. If you've been doing it for 33 years, yes, we've all bombed a lot.
Right.
My favorite, the two biggest bombs, there we go, the two. One was for a group of Hispanic truckers. So there was the language difficulty where they only understood about a third of what I was saying, if that.
Yeah.
But it was the relatability issue. I talked about my grandma. No, these were truckers who were just alone and they had no family. So it's like, oh my gosh, I can't talk about kids. I can't talk about family. I can't talk about anything. So I had nothing to relate to them. But that's not the worst. The worst of all possible days was I was hired to perform in front of a group of bankers. Now, if you understand rich people, you understand they might be a tad self-absorbed now and then. So not only were they bankers up at Pebble Beach at a golf tournament, but they sat on round tables and had me on stage. It's a small little platform, no microphone, no lights, not a single person turned around to look at me. And when I started, waiters went around the tables with cognac and cigars and giving everybody their choice. People didn't listen to a word I said for 5 minutes. They just decided, we're richer than you. We don't have to listen to you. We're ignoring you. Right. And so, no, we've all had those times when I'm just not relating and things don't go great.
Yeah.
But what I have learned as far as the important bombing story, those are they're fun stories. But the most important bombing story is I came home one time. I followed some dirty comics down in San Diego. It didn't go well. It was hot. It was sweaty. Everybody was exhausted. By the time I got up, there was no energy left. And I was kind of grousing about it as I went home. And I woke up the next morning, and just inside my head, I heard God say, you did that one on your own, didn't you? I went, oh, yeah, I did, didn't I? I didn't do it for God. I didn't do it for those people. I wasn't trying to bring joy. I was going through my checklist of material in my head. And that's when I realized I have a little sign on my computer. I don't know if you can see it, but it says invite him in. And that means I'm not a solo comedian. I'm a partner. My partner is God. And I before I go on stage every time now, I say, all right, God, what do you want to do? And it's not for me. It's got to be for the audience or it will bomb. And things have improved. It's amazing. Even after 30 years, I still had to be reminded of that because you just get in this pattern and you forget, oh yeah, why am I doing this really? I thought it was just to work out material for the next gig. No, it's to bring joy to those people and to be a good ambassador for God. That's the only reason I'm allowed to do what I'm doing. And I forgot that for a while. So.
Yeah. Now, let's talk a little bit about, because I know you did some writing for the children's series Veggie Tales. How did that come about?
I was working as the drama director for my church, and somebody came up.
Bel Air Press, right?
Yeah, Bel Air Press. And that was just a great time. Loved it. A lot of good things came out of it. Eventually, a new pastor came in. They dissolved the drama department. I was let go on Ash Wednesday. My church gave me up for Lent. That's the joke. All right. So, but I was doing one of these sketches, and a guy
Yeah.
who worked for VeggieTales said, you might work for us. VeggieTales was making big movies, and they needed somebody to keep the pipeline going with the stories. And so they brought me in for that, and they could find writers that had a Monty Python sensibility but didn't know the scriptures. And they could find people who understood scripture but weren't funny. So I was that middle ground of that weird
Oh yeah.
oxymoron of someone who actually loves God and loves comedy. And so I went in and pitched some ideas. And my favorite story on that was there was a story of a Western over on page 6 and a story of Joseph on page 1. And by the time I left, they said, we like that story about Joseph as a Western. And I went, me too. I think it's a great idea. And so I wrote my first one, and I did, probably 6 or 7 full-length videos, and then helped on some of the smaller ones and helped on the TV show. But they've gone through so many bankruptcies and reforming that everybody I knew that worked on it is gone now. So it was a great run. I loved it. People still post things on my page every once in a while. Like I got one yesterday of Sherlock Holmes. I did that one. It's like, yep, there it is. I wrote that one. So it's fun to know that I was part of that world for a while.
Yeah, sure. You also produced a movie a few years ago, and which I thought was an excellent movie, by the way. You came down and did a private screening with a group for us, and I thought it was an excellent movie. Tell us about that.
Well, that came from also our church that said, there were Christian movies being made, and my philosophy or theory was music in the 80s and 90s, Christian music became just as good as secular music because Amy Grant and Michael W. Smith in the 80s, it was like, okay, there's that. The next it was video, like VeggieTales. Okay, we're just as good as the secular, we can do it. And then movies came along. It's like, now's the time. Let's go. Well, I misjudged the market. The Christian audience was not ready for a comedy. Still to this day, it's got to be very genteel, can't be too far. And so I had a great time doing it. I loved it. It was probably one of the highlights of my life. Everybody in my church drama department we used a lot of them because I knew their voices. I knew what they could do. We had immensely talented people who worked in other facets of show business. And we had a church that needed money. They couldn't afford to keep the doors open because the congregation had dwindled. So we paid them to keep the doors open for a month. We used it as our home base, and I wrote the whole movie around this church that was falling apart, literally. And whatever they had in the church, I used it in the movie. So it's called Can I Get a Witness Protection? And it's like Some Like It Hot or Sister Act, where someone sees a crime and they're hidden in witness protection in a church. It just so happens here, the first day on the job, the head pastor has a heart attack and dies. So a guy who knows nothing about Christianity is put in charge of a church. And so it's his walk to faith. Now, as far as the fun story, as far as Christians not accepting Christians, why didn't that movie make it? It's a matter of taste, but Christian bookstores and things like PureFlix on cable wouldn't take it because the guy who was preaching the sermons didn't go to seminary, which is actually the plot of the movie.
Yeah, of course.
That's right. He's not a Christian. That's the joke. But he becomes a Christian. It's like, oh no, we can't show people someone who's in the pulpit and isn't a Christian. It's like, you've got to be kidding me. And it's that kind of mentality that I just can't fight against. It's like, all right, that's who you are. So, all right, we're not in your bookstore. Okay, we're not in your bookstore. Okay, we're not in your cable station. So you can find us on Amazon and Prime, and you can watch the movie. And I still get great comments about it to this day. But Christians are not ready for a Christian comedy just yet, which makes me so sad. But it will someday. I just don't know when it's going to be.
Well, let's plug it because it's still on Amazon, right? And it's called Can I Get a Witness Protection? And it's a great movie, folks. Go out and download it, buy it, because I think it was a really it is a funny premise, and for the church to turn that down because of that, to me, is just absolutely ridiculous. But I digress there. Hey, let's go to another question. We'll
Please.
get out of this one. Yes, Marisa, do we have another one? Okay, this is from Ian Hayden. Robert, who would you like to publish your book?
Well, we haven't gotten to that yet, but that's one of those questions like, God, what do you want me to do? Because the movie didn't make it, and I knew I wasn't going to I couldn't make a career out of that. I said, what do I want to say? Well, to be honest, I want my kids and my grandkids and people to know what I believe ultimately. And I'm also looking at a country that is filled with cynicism and sarcasm. That's the language that this generation speaks.
Mhm.
And so I said, all right, how do I update C.S. Lewis's Christianity Today for today's audience? And so I said, all right, I'm going to write a book. And that's what I did. It's called, and I just finished the 5th draft. That's why they're bringing it up, because they probably saw it on Facebook. It's called What's the Big Idea? A Comedian Explains God, the Universe, and Other Minor Stuff. And it's very systematically broken down. I just talk about the universe, the world, and the body. And I just talk about the amazing, I went through books of physics and biology and all. I just did a heck of a lot of research, and it was a lot of fun, but man, did I get into some deep waters. And then I translated it through a smart Alex point of view. So when those 3 things are done, it's irrefutable. You cannot even begin to say this happened by chance. There was an intelligent designer behind it. And so then I say, okay, now let me introduce the one who said he did it, which is God. And let me explain his Bible, and let me explain who Jesus Christ is. And I'm trying to explain it in terms that people can understand about story and why God says it's not exclusive, saying only one way to God. It's open to everybody. It's totally inclusive. So I'm trying to look at things from a different point of view and using humor to do that. And then the last third of the book is, well, it is true that God made everything. Why is everything still broken, and why should I believe in it? So that's the last third of the book where a lot of my personal story comes in. So I've gone through it. I've massaged it. I've put in a lot more personal stuff. It's not just a book of facts. It's a lot of me in there now. It's still very funny. And now it's ready. So who do I want to publish it? That's a great question. And in my heart of hearts, of course, I wanted to get out there to as many people as possible. I'm thinking about doing a one-man show to go along with it, to get it out there. But if just 1,000 people's lives could be changed by reading a book that says, "Oh, I never looked at it that way," that would mean everything in the world to me. So it may be, I may have to self-publish it. I don't have a big name. I'm not that, the guy says, "Oh, I'm going to put this out there." But nobody knew who Lou Strobel was when he put out The Case for Christ. So with the right publisher, maybe they can get it out there and people can see it's an evangelical tool. There's no doubt. I'm unashamed about it. That's what it is. But I'm trying to, again, not insult anybody, but just go, this is the right way. And this is what God wants. This is how we should live. And life will go better for you if you go according to what the instructions are in his book. So who do I want to publish it? I am so open. I'm totally ignorant. I haven't gone into that realm. I'm talking to people this week. Some people are saying self-publish. Some people are saying do a hybrid of the two. Other people are saying get to this publisher. Thank you. It's a great question. I don't have a good answer. And when to help it, I'm also thinking of doing a weekly blog, take chapter by chapter, and just to kind of get the word out there. So perform it, and then it'll be a precursor to my one-man show.
It sounds like a great book. It's going to be good. The title is "What's the Big Idea? Comedian Explains God, the Universe, and Other Minor Stuff." That's a lot in a title. Hey, let's go to one final question here because we're coming up to the top of the hour. And do we have another question? This is from Dan Brewster. Are all his old VHS comedies videos available somewhere, maybe digitally somewhere for download? I like his old Monk video.
Yep, Brother Bob. Yeah, the old video. So all the old VHS videos there's 2 ways you can get them. I've converted most into DVDs, so they are available that way. I've also taken some of the best cuts, and I just put them on one DVD called The Best of Bob. So I took some of the Brother Bob footage. So my albums, I started back in the 90s doing the VHS tape. So I took the best of all those routines and put it on one disc. Again, that's The Best of Bob. But if you really want Picture This or just having fun, I have those combined 2 on the one DVD, and I can get it to you. I don't sell them on my website anymore, so just contact me through Facebook, and we'll just work out something. I'll send it to you.
Okay, your Facebook handle is what? Just Robert G. Lee? Is it just
Robert G. Lee? Yeah, that's about as simple as that.
Or what was the new?
Oh, I'm sorry, Malcolm X Lee. That's what you have to put it under. Yeah, Robert Lee is offensive to somebody.
Yeah. Well, Bob, in closing, tell us how faith has influenced your comedy, or has your comedy influenced your faith, or how that's worked for you.
It really goes hand in hand. I can't see living this life without a sense of humor and without God. Right. It's just so much. I was raised in a Christian home. I was not a Christian really until I saw Josh McDowell in college, and and Josh knows this, and we've talked about it, and it's great because I contact him about every 5 years or so, and I think he's going to give a good quote for my book, so that's great.
Good.
But he was the one that really pushed me over into belief. And my three heroes of the faith are three people who tried to disprove it, and that's Lee Strobel, C.S. Lewis, and Josh McDowell.
Yeah.
And my point of view is I have a Christian worldview. It's just so much of who I am. Not all my material revolves around Christianity, but it all comes from the same viewpoint that life is fun and funny, and let's laugh about it. But when I start moving into the God thing, I mean, I've been teaching a Bible study for 20 years at my church. It's just who I am. So how does it? You can't separate one from the other. The book, if I'm going to write it, has to be about God. If a movie, if I'm going to write it, has to be about God. It's just, if you're going to talk about the big issues of life, that's just who I am. It's just, I can't separate it. So when you see me, my favorite comment someone made years ago was when they left a show of mine, they said, well, you talked about Jesus, but you made me laugh, so I didn't care. So it's like, well, okay, that's high praise right there. And I don't always, it just, depends on the venue. Not everybody wants me to, some places say, please, we want you to, some places, we do an altar call for us. Most people say, we just want to laugh. Just laugh. Yeah. Okay, we'll laugh. But it always comes from that same point of view, though. So it's a great question, but one I can't answer because it's fabric of one whole. I can't take one out over another.
It's who you are.
And if you don't agree with that philosophy, you won't like my shows because I'm having fun with God. Again, not making fun of God. I'm not going to mock him. I will not do that. But it's all from, look at what he made and look how great he is and how silly we are. So that's kind of my stance.
Yeah. Well, as we close tonight, one of the things I do like to put out there to people, because I don't know, who's watching tonight, but if you are watching tonight and, particularly in this time of life with things as crazy as they are out there right now, you're grasping for some kind of meaning. But, we've heard this scripture so many times before, that for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believed in him would not perish, but would have eternal life. And Jesus also said that I've come to give you life, and I've come to give you more abundant life. And Bob's faith, my faith, the people sitting around me in this room, my staff and my crew here, are all believers. And if you are in that place tonight where you're wondering, geez, what's this all about? God has got a plan for your life, and God had a plan for Bob's life, and we explored that tonight. We'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us at prayer. Can we bring that up? Prayer at the Upper Room Presents. And if you'd like to make a decision for Christ, we would like to talk to you. Prayer at theupperroompresents.com. We'd love to talk to you. If you make a statement of faith, we'd love to send you a Bible, help you get started, and because it's that important, and it's what God created us for. Bob, thank you so much. It's always a joy.
Pleasure.
To be with you.
I'm sorry I didn't drive down to be with you and Kathy, but
and I will put this out there because Bob reminded me just before the show tonight. He said, when I emailed you, I said I'd be happy to drive down and we'll do the show, in studio there. And I somehow missed that in the email, but it would have been great. But next time we will do
It'll
it that
happen
way.
again. Well, we will see you soon.
Yeah. Bob, thank you so much, folks. Thanks for watching, and keep an eye on. We're going to be announcing who we'll be having on next week. And Bob, you're going to be on Huckabee Show when?
I tape it on July the 10th, so that's about 2 weeks, and it's usually on the very next day, but you'll have to look at your listings for that. It's usually on Saturday and Sunday, but they may take a week to edit it. So that's it's either going to be on the 11th or the 18th. I don't know which weekend it's going to be on.
Yeah. Well, he must like you because this is your second or third time back, right?
The second time down there.
Yeah. Well, that's a big deal.
It'll be fun.
Be looking for that. Bob, thank you so much. God bless you. Folks, God bless you, and see you next time.
Adios.